Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am super excited you're here because today we're taking on a real mission. We are going to completely demystify the whole negative questions thing in English. You know, if you're studying at a B1 level, or really if conversational fluency is your goal, I'm sure you've bumped into these. And honestly, they can feel like a total riddle, right? But don't worry. By the end of this explainer, you're going to understand exactly how they tick, why native speakers absolutely love using them, and how you can use them with total confidence. Let's get into it. Okay, listen to this question for a second. Don't you want to improve your English? Now notice how that specific phrasing makes you feel compared to just asking, do you want to improve your English? It feels, I don't know, a bit more pointed, doesn't it? Like a little more emotional? Or maybe like, I already completely expect you to say yes? Well, that extra layer of meaning, that little conversational spice, that is exactly the power of a negative question.
So here's our roadmap for building your confidence today. First, we'll look at the negative question puzzle, then surprise and suggestions. After that, we'll break down the core grammar structure, followed by some quirks with tenses and modals. Then, the big one, how to answer correctly. And finally, why context is everything.
All right, part one, the negative question puzzle. What exactly are they?
I know a lot of learners get a bit anxious around these tricky phrases. You hear a negative question in the wild and it kind of feels like a trap, right? Making you freeze up, wondering how you're supposed to react. But let's just strip all that anxiety away and look at the absolute basic definition. A negative question is literally just a question in English that contains the negative particle not, or, way more commonly in everyday conversation, its contracted form, intent. And, well, that's it, really. Reassure yourself that at their core, these are just regular old questions that happen to have a not attached to them. They aren't trying to trick you. They're just expressing a slightly different flavor of thought.
Moving on to part two, surprise and suggestions. Basically, why do we even use them?
It is absolutely crucial that we understand the why before we get bogged down in the how of the grammar. Because honestly, we don't just use these to randomly ask for negative facts. We use them because they're packed with emotion, conversational nuance, and these really subtle expectations. There's really a dual nature to these questions. On one side, we've got your yes-no negative questions like, don't you understand me? Which carries a heavy meaning of surprise. It's like saying, I think you don't understand, and wow, I'm shocked by that. But then on the other side, we have WH negative questions, like, why don't we go out for a walk? That shifts the meaning entirely into a really friendly suggestion or an invitation. It's the exact same basic tool, but used for vastly different human interactions.
So let's elaborate on those three main uses. First up, expressing surprise or disbelief. Picture this. Someone offers you a coffee, you say no, and they might ask, don't you like coffee? Because they're genuinely blown away that you wouldn't want one. Second, obtaining confirmation of a fact. Like, you're pretty sure you know something, but you just want to double check. And third, making polite suggestions or invitations. Like, why don't we start the project today? Native speakers use these all the time to add flavor and emotion to their conversations, not just to ask for the opposite of a fact.
All right, part three, the core grammar structure. How do we actually build them?
I promise you, there's a beautiful, almost math-like consistency to this grammar. Once you catch the pattern, it's going to click, and you'll be able to build these flawlessly every single time. Think about the exact structural difference here. A standard question is, did you call her? To make it negative, we simply attach the contracted not to the auxiliary verb, didn't you call her? The entire rest of the sentence stays exactly the same. It's that simple. Okay, here is the exact four-step formula you're going to want to memorize. Step 1, start with your auxiliary verb. You know, do, be, or have. Step 2, add your not, usually as the contraction ent. Step 3, insert your subject. And step 4, drop in your main verb. Recognizing and applying this pattern is literally the key to mastering the structure. It works like a well-oiled machine.
Let's see that formula in action, shall we? Doesn't he play the guitar? We've got our auxiliary does plus ent, subject he, verb play. Haven't you heard about that? Auxiliary have plus ent, subject you, verb heard. Aren't they interested in this project? Auxiliary are plus ent, subject they. That formula we just walked through perfectly applies to each one of these, completely regardless of which auxiliary verb is being used.
Which brings us to part 4, quirks, tenses, and modals. Let's see how the structure adapts when we jump across different time frames. The cool thing is, the core structure remains totally intact. The only thing that shifts is the auxiliary verb to indicate the tense. For present simple, we use don't, as in, don't you know him?
To push it into the past simple, don't just becomes didn't. Didn't they finish their homework? And for the future simple, we use will not, which, as you know, contracts to won't. Won't you join us tomorrow? All the other puzzle pieces stay exactly where they are.
Now, here is a really, really interesting exception. When you're using the first person singular to be verb in the present tense, I am, you'd probably logically expect the negative question to be amn't I? But fun fact, amn't is incredibly rare and honestly just sounds quite awkward in standard English. So English pulls a little trick and borrows from the plural form. We say aren't I, as in aren't I a part of the team? It's definitely a quirk, but a super common one you'll hear all the time.
Modals are another fantastic tool here. Modal verbs like can, should, or must slot perfectly right into that auxiliary spot at the very front of our formula. This lets us ask about permission, possibility, advice, or duty, all with that same negative emotional spin. Can't you help me with this? Asks about a possibility, but with a little hint of pleading. Shouldn't we start? Offers a really strong suggestion. As you can see, the structure handles modals effortlessly.
All right, part 5, the big one. How to answer correctly.
I know this is often the absolute peak of learner anxiety. How do you answer these things without freezing up and causing a massive misunderstanding? Well, let's look at a classic anxiety-inducing situation. Imagine your boss walks up to you and says, "Didn't you go to the meeting?" I'll just pause for a second. How would you instinctively respond to this if you actually did go? And how would you respond if you didn't go? It's confusing, right? Because the question itself contains a negative, so your brain scrambles to figure out what yes and no actually mean in this context.
To clear this up once and for all, we use what we call the binary rule. Just strip away all the conversational ambiguity and completely ignore the not in the question. In English, a yes answer always aligns with the positive reality of the action. So if the action happened, you say, "Yes, I did." It simply means, "Yes, I was at the meeting." A no answer, on the other hand, always aligns with the negative reality. If the action did not happen, say, "No, I didn't." It means, "No, I was not at the meeting."
Let's reiterate that rule using a to-do example. Say someone asks you, maybe a little frustrated, "Don't you understand me?" Okay, if you have clarity, your reality is positive, so you say, "Yes, I do." By saying yes, you're actually disagreeing with their negative assumption. But if you are confused, your reality is negative, so you say, "No, I don't." Here, no actually agrees with their negative assumption. Just anchor yourself to your reality. Positive reality equals yes. Negative reality equals no. It's a lifesaver.
And finally, part 6. Context is everything.
Remember, while the grammar formula is super strict and math-like, and the answering rule is completely binary, you really should always rely on the situation and the speaker's tone of voice to understand their true emotion and context. And that wraps up our deep dive. We have conquered the structure, the uses, and the incredibly tricky art of answering. So I want to leave you with one final question to test your brand new skills. Didn't you learn something new and useful today? If I did my job right, your answer to that should be a very confident, "Yes, I did." Keep practicing these, listen out for them in your favorite English shows, and until next time, keep learning.